Dr. Mike Omotosho. How are you today?
Very well, my brother, Dr. Michael Eisa. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you today. I'm very glad you accepted our invitation. And I just want to give the audience a brief history of your very rich CV. You were born in 14th of January in Zaria. You hold a Bachelor of Pharmacy degree from Amadou Bello University School of Pharmacy Zaria, Kaduna State. And you also hold a certificate in policy and public management from the University of London, a master's certificate in supply chain management from the University of San Francisco, chartered manager of successful program, a certified manager of risk and project. And last but not least, in 2008, you graduated of the leadership development program of the prestigious Harvard Business School, Boston, Massachusetts, USA. And finally, you have a doctorate degree in professional ethics from Trinity College, Seychelles. Wow, wow, incredible. I mean, this is, I haven't even read the remaining of the CV. Incredible, rich history and accomplishment. The only thing I want to just sincerely say is you make me and all our brother and sister Africa proud of what you have accomplished. Really, it's a very story. I want to ask you, how did you start with the pharmacy, being a doctor for the pharmacy, and then you change into the business, and what was your decision based on?
Well, thanks for that question, Dr. Eisa. Well, you know, when you go to pharmacy school in Nigeria, you are actually trained on all aspects of life. So first you do courses like pharmaceutics, which teaches you how to actually understand medicine itself. Then you also do pharmacognosy, that tells you where you get medicines from, the plants that you get medicines from. Then you do pharmaceutical chemistry, that tells you about the chemical composition of those drugs. Then more importantly, you also do you also do what we call marketing, pharmaceutical marketing and management. So there you are exposed to hospital pharmacy, you're exposed to administration of the pharmacy in different settings. You're even exposed to marketing of pharmaceuticals, the ethics and the kind of standards involved in all of those. So we often tell people that when you graduate as a pharmacist, especially in Nigeria, because of the curriculum, you can almost branch into any field. In fact, you have a lot of pharmacists in Nigeria who are head of banks currently. You have a lot of pharmacists in Nigeria who are head of telecommunication companies, even in food and beverage companies. So the kind of training actually exposes you to a diverse area of opportunities. But the truth of the matter is that once you have business within you, it's very difficult for you to leave business irrespective of what your major discipline is. So for me, I've actually been a business person from when I was young, and I'll give you a very short story. When I was in the university, my mother changed vehicles, so there was a spare vehicle at home, and I wanted to take the vehicle to school. And my father said, he gave a proverb. You know, in Africa, we use a lot of proverbs. And then my father said, someone that is being taken care of cannot have a dog. What he's trying to say is, I'm still under them. They're catering for my needs. There's no way I can go and incur additional expenses by having a car. So, but my mom was always very supportive. And my mom said, well, I can have it. So eventually we had an agreement that, okay, my pocket money was not going to change. There was not going to be any money for the upkeep of the vehicle. My upkeep will remain the way it is, and I can have the vehicle. So I had to devise strategies, to make extra money to be able to fuel the vehicle, service the vehicle, and maintain the vehicle. So I started doing things like going to the fine arts department. I would buy a painting from the fine arts people. I'll look for very beautiful ones. I will spend my money to frame them. Then I'll take them to the school bookshop. And then the school bookshop will display them and then do sale or return. If they're able to sell, then they pay me. So whenever I'm broke, I go around the window, I look at the school bookshop. If I don't see any of my paintings, I go inside quickly and assume it's been sold and then ask for my money. So I mean, tiny things like that actually helps to grow one, and then you begin to understand the dynamics of business. So at that young age, I needed to understand how much I had to buy the painting for, how much I had to frame for, and how much I will have to price it for so that I can have some extra for profit too as well.
Incredible achievement. You should be very proud, and we are
thank you so much, Dr.
Very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
And my other question to you is, you studied in London, you studied USA, you decided not to build a new life in all those other countries and come back to Nigeria. What was the motivation?
Well, the truth of the matter is, where I come from, they say no matter how far your farm is, you will still come back home to sleep. You will come back home to rest. So the truth of the matter is, no matter how far one has gone, you still have just one country, and your people are still back home. You have cousins, you have nieces, nephews, you have uncles, you have aunts, you have everybody back home. And when you see a lot of opportunities where you can make a difference, it becomes a lot easier. And I will let you into a secret that I hardly tell people. In the US, for instance, you have a lot of things working fine. In most European countries, everybody is working fine. So if you truly want to be a philanthropist, you're going to have to work extra hard to actually touch lives. But in a country like Nigeria, there are lots and lots of opportunities that you can touch lives, that you can use to touch lives, because there are myriads of problems that you can solve. What I'm simply saying is that when you light a matchstick, it is a lot brighter in darkness than in broad daylight. So when you light a matchstick in Europe or in America, it's like lighting a matchstick in broad daylight. But when you light it in Africa, in Nigeria, for instance, it's like lighting it in darkness. So the little you're able to do is very obvious, and it is a lot more appreciated. So there are more problems for us to solve here. And hey, if we don't come back to solve those problems, we will solve them for us.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing accomplishment. And thank you for going back to your homeland to basically solve all those problems. Now, obviously, we want to also get your opinion and COVID and Corona, and what is your opinion? How long this whole thing with COVID-19 and Corona will last? And are you also pushing for initiative to build vaccination for the children in Africa for Corona? What is your opinion in this area?
Well, you've asked about two questions in one. For starters, I think this is a new normal. I believe most of us have had the opportunity of looking ahead. We've already seen that the online makes the world actually a lot smaller, and it's an opportunity for us to begin to think, if you have a local business, how do you make it global? So almost anybody that has a business will have thought of that, but most of us never actually penned down our desires, our visions of going global. Whether we like it or not, COVID has accelerated that process for us. For me, in whatever situation, I like to see the good side of it. So I'm focusing on the opportunities that are inherent in COVID and COVID-19 itself. So what COVID just did for us is to accelerate that process of going virtual, that process of going digital, that process of going global, that process of taking your business to the entire global community. And if you have a business that is not global, you begin to think how you can make your business global. So for me, it's an opportunity that I believe we should all harness, seek out ways to actually make this work for us. I'll give you a simple example. In my business, for instance, we do cold chain logistics, health commodity logistics for temperature sensitive commodities. But before COVID, we probably just work for only the donor partners like US government as represented by USAID, the UNICEFs of this world, the JSI, the Chemonics, just basically donor funded projects in public health. But we've always decided in our mind that we will need to go public. Let the entire public be able to access our facilities and enjoy this facility that we're able to provide. But we've streamlined it to just the donor partners. Now, with the advent of COVID, everybody had to sit at home. We didn't have a choice than to open up our business to the entire public space. So I believe that's an opportunity for everybody too. You must be able to seek ways of taking your business global, seek ways of reaching more people from within the confines of maybe just your phone or just your laptop, because the world is indeed a global village. We've been saying that, but this is actually time for us to actualize it. So I tell people that COVID is here. This is the new normal. The world is not going to change. No, it's not going to change. The way we interact with each other is never going to be the same thing again. Yes, travels may resume, tourism may resume, schools may resume, even business opportunities and travels may resume. But then the opportunities that online business offers provides a new avenue that we need to harness. And I believe COVID has given us that opportunity, and we have COVID to thank for that. And so I think this is a new normal. We should just get set and then begin to enjoy the new normal, because the only thing that is constant in life is change. So this is a new normal, and we should just get used to it. Now, I'm not saying COVID is going to be here forever, but I'm just saying it has changed the way we do everything forever. Eateries will never be the same thing again. For instance, I'm here, I've got sanitizer spray, I've got sanitizer gel everywhere. I mean, it will continue even after COVID. I want to wash my hands all of the time. I've got my mask just beside me. It will continue for a very long time, even when they say COVID is gone. Yeah. So we should just prepare and say, yes, welcome to the new normal, and then just get used to it, really.
Yeah, very, very good message. But what I also heard you say is that there is more positive than negative. You know, we need to look for the positive rather than looking for the negative.
I totally agree with you. Well, the truth of the matter is what you look for is what you see. You know, most times people will tell you the glass is either half empty or half full. But as an entrepreneur, I don't even want to see that. I just want to know where the water is coming from. That's what's important for me. Whether the glass is half full or half empty is not as important as where the water is coming from. I need to fill my glass. That's what matters. So irrespective of the negative parts of COVID, what is more important is what are the opportunities that are inherent that we can quickly harness. And that's the way I say it. I'll give you another example again. I've done a lot of work with hepatitis. Like, you know, hepatitis kills about 1.46 million people every year globally. Yeah. Yeah. When you break down that number, that actually gives you about 4,000 people dying from hepatitis every day. That number is more than the number of people dying from malaria, HIV, and tuberculosis combined. That number is more than the number of people that COVID has killed already. That's the reality. Yeah. Forget the statistics. I mean, if you divide it by the days and co. So, and this is for an ailment that has a vaccine. This is for an ailment that actually has a treatment. And not just a treatment, some of the variants of hepatitis actually has a cure, a full cure. You see, because in medicine, when you say you have a disease or an ailment and I can give you something, that is treatment. Yeah. So whether it cures or doesn't cure is different. Once you can use it to manage, then you can call it treatment. But when it takes care, the total care of the ailment, then you say it results in cure. So we do have treatment that results in cure for hepatitis. So why should people die needlessly? So we had a candidate drug called super infection therapy. That super infection therapy is a drug, but it works like a vaccine. So what it does is that it comes into the DNA of the host, and then it encourages the cell itself to fight the virus, the hepatitis B virus, which is a DNA virus. Incidentally, the COVID virus is also a DNA virus, just like the HIV virus. So what we're exploring now is the opportunity of using this candidate drug to also fight COVID.
I see.
And we're partnering some Nigerian institutions to see how we can actually begin the research on how to check the efficacy of this candidate drug, even for the COVID virus itself.
Thank you very much for this explanation. And this leads me to my next question is that, do you believe in the vaccination for COVID? Do you believe it's going to come? If the vaccination comes out into the market, would you personally take it?
Well, the truth of the matter is vaccinations will come, because as I speak to you, there are already over 100 candidate vaccines already. Pharmaceutical companies are coming up with vaccines from various countries, including the Russians that have actually even gotten to advanced stage already. The Russians have passed, they are currently, I think, in stage 3 of their clinical trials, which is actually the last phase. And so many other pharmaceutical companies and countries are already moving towards that too as well. So yes, the vaccines will come. Now, the second question, if I will take it. Yes, if it's available, yes, I'll take it. It's not a problem. Forget all the propaganda, because, I mean, and the conspiracy theory. I'm a scientist. I'm in the medical field, so I understand facts from reality and also myths. So the truth of the matter is vaccines are here to actually help you. That's the truth, whether we like it or not. However, I disagree on the basis of a global vaccine. I do not think that COVID deserves all the attention it is getting, especially when it comes to developing a vaccine for global use. Sorry.
Yes.
Globally,
yes.
we have over 7 billion people now. I mean, for me, it's like just creating business for pharmaceutical companies, even though I'm a pharmacist. But it's like creating business for pharmaceutical companies when you want to vaccinate 7 billion people. You see,
Yes.
COVID actually has a death rate of between 1% and 3%. What we're simply saying is that when you're able-bodied, especially if you're between the ages of 18 and 40, where your immune system is at its peak, your chances of getting COVID is just 15%.
Yes. Yes.
So 85% of the people may not just get COVID at all. And even if they do, their body system can fight it.
Yes. Yes.
That's number one. Then of the remaining 15% that may get it, these are people that are probably under the age of 18 or are older than 40, or who already have some ailments that will compromise their immunity, maybe like diabetes, cancer, or so. So that makes them more prone to COVID. But even when they get it, their chances of developing a clinical symptom that will lead them to hospital is still about 5 to 10%.
Yes.
Meaning
yes.
about 90 to 95% of them will have it, but they will take care of it by themselves even at home, because they'll be able to take care of the symptoms that they're getting at home.
Yeah. Yes.
Now,
yes.
of those 10 to 15 that will go to the hospital, only the elderly and some people with some very serious ailments, or those that did not take care of it, especially those that probably even have pulmonary diseases or heart diseases or lungs diseases, are usually the ones that may end up dying, and it's just 1 to 3%. Dr. Eisa, please check the records. You will notice that the number of people dying from flu, ordinary flu, is more than 1 to 3%. So why all the noise? That's the point. So COVID is real. It's not fake. It's not propaganda. It is real. But I do not think it deserves all the attention it is getting. I do not think it deserves to shut down global economy the way it is. And that's the position I've always had from the beginning, especially in poor countries like Africa, like Nigeria. I mean, poor countries of Africa like Nigeria. COVID does not deserve to shut down the economy. When we tried the field lockdown, security risk increased, crime increased, and then there was total shutdown of economy. Now they're beginning to ease the lockdown, and then we're going back after the economy has been destabilized. For instance, the dollar was a little over 300 naira to a dollar. Now it's almost 500 naira to a dollar in Nigeria.
Wow.
We have a lot of deficit already, but we're beginning to ease the lockdown. But a lot of damage has been done. So I do not believe COVID deserves all the attention it is getting. It is real, it kills, but then like every other thing, cancer kills more people, malaria kills more people, tuberculosis kills more people, HIV kills more people, hepatitis kills more people.
That's amazing.
So
That's
yes,
amazing
we
answer.
should follow up, we should check very well, we should check the morphology and the way the virus is changing, come up with a vaccine where possible, but more importantly, come up with a treatment so that it can result in cure. But it keeps mutating. The virus keeps mutating. So the medical personnel must also adapt to the way it is changing. And once you can take care of the clinical symptoms early enough, then everybody goes home and dry.
So Dr. Omotosho, thank you for this clear explanation. And I want to follow this with a question on many people's mind. Everybody's debating, should I wear mask? Should I not wear mask? And you probably heard the debate in the USA. Does mask help against COVID? Or you think it's nonsense?
No, well, the truth of the matter is, yes, mask helps. However, there are some tricky conditions that we must note. You see, it is ironic that when you wear a mask, you tend to touch your face more often. And when you wear a mask, you're probably not wearing a glove. You're not wearing hand gloves.
Yes.
So if you touch a surface where the virus is, even when you're wearing a mask and you come this way, the virus can actually go in through your eyes, through your nose, or through your mouth. So we keep adjusting the mask every now and then we may actually even inadvertently introduce the virus because of the frequent touching. That's one problem.
Yeah.
However, most of the masks that are available now are actually not real masks. They do not protect. People just wear, especially the mask in Nigeria. Most of the masks that are available, not all of them, do not even have a filter. So it's basically more like a protection against dust, not against the virus itself, because the fibers of the material are so loosely interwoven that the virus can actually penetrate. So even when you're wearing a mask, you're truly not protected against the virus. You're probably just protected against dust or some other things. But because the regulation says people must wear masks, then you see people just making masks from any material, and they buy masks for less than 10 cents or 5 cents. Hey, that doesn't have a filter and is not going to protect. That's where the problem is. So truly, yes, we should wear masks. However, we should be very careful, because most of the masks that are available now are high-grade masks. And when you wear them for a very long time, it actually affects your breathing level and it lowers the concentration of oxygen in your blood. Now, the surgical masks that doctors wear for 3, 4, 5 hours are very light. And it's different. That you can wear for a long time, you can wear for prolonged times. But most of the masks that we have available, especially the KN95 mask, are not advisable to be worn for prolonged period. But a lot of people do not have this education, and they wear the mask wrongly or wear the wrong mask for a very long time, which may affect their health, or wear the correct mask for a shorter period of time. But if you're going into an endemic area or a high-risk area, I encourage people to please wear a mask. But more importantly, I believe besides mask, social distancing is a lot more important. For instance, if it were before, we'll probably be having this meeting as a physical meeting, this interview as a physical meeting. But now we're appreciating the opportunity to have the interview online. So people I've had about 4 or 5 meetings today now. Where possible, I try to push off any physical meeting. It's a lot easier to meet online or phone call or just via Zoom or meetings to go or so. It's a lot easier these days. So if you can, please social distance if you must go out, and ensure that you have about 2 meters apart from each other. And then where possible, quickly wash your hands. with soap and water for like 20 seconds. And in the absence of soap and water, just use a sanitizer until you're able to get soap and water. But beyond all of those, I often tell people, eat healthy, lots of fruits and vegetables, take your vitamins and supplements if you cannot eat healthy, so that your body immune system is at its optimal, because it is the body's immune system that will help against COVID. There's no drug against COVID for now. We have some hydroxychloroquine, Zitromax, and all of those, azithromycin and the rest. They're basically to take care of the clinical symptoms. But your body is still the best mechanism to fight COVID-19 itself, to fight the virus. So
much better than vaccine, anything.
So what?
Much better than the vaccine itself.
Well, ironically, what the vaccine does is to help your body to fight it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So the vaccine goes in, but without, if you're not eating well and your immunity is not okay, even the vaccine itself will be compromised.
Yes. Yes.
So it helps to actually fight it. That's the logic, yes. So the immunity, the body's immune system is the best, even beyond the vaccine, like you rightly noted.
Incredible advice for all our brother and sister in Africa and all people around the world. And this leads me to my next question. I feel I want to talk to you here for a few days, not few hours.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the kind words, Dr. Eisa. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I know you have ambitions, a plan to eradicate hepatitis and polio from Africa. I'm very interested. What are your plans? Who are you working with? What kind of investment do you need to basically have a zero hepatitis and zero polio in Africa? I mean, that's a major achievement, or future achievement, I should say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eisa.
Can you shed some light?
Yes, there's a good news and a bad news.
Okay.
A friend once told me that if you have a good news and a bad news, always come with the good news first. Because if you go with the bad news and the person faints, then he doesn't get to hear the good news. So I'll start with the good news first. After several years, Rotary and the other donor partners like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, UNICEF, WHO, and several other donor partners have finally eradicated polio from Africa. You know, unfortunately, Nigeria was the last country to be declared polio-free, and Nigeria was declared polio-free on the 25th of August this year. In fact, on the 28th of August, we had an official celebration with the head of the WHO African region, the president of Nigeria, and the global president of Rotary, and a lot of other donor partner leaders, where we celebrated the polio exit from Africa, because Nigeria was the very last country in Africa. So Africa as it is now is polio free. However, that does not mean there's no more polio. So vaccinations will continue, immunizations against polio will continue. Yes, naturally. Okay. So it just means we need to sustain the work, but the moment you don't have polio for 3 years, then you can declare the country polio free. For Nigeria, we had to wait 4 years just to be sure nothing will be locking. You remember we had started the 3-year count. Then in the 2nd year, they found polio somewhere else where there was Boko Haram. So we had to start counting afresh, and then we counted till we got to 4 years. So they didn't do 3 years for Nigeria, they did 4 years. So now Nigeria is polio free, and to that extent, the entirety of Africa is polio free. Now I come to the bad news. Well, before I leave there, I think it's important to appreciate the effort of the 1.3 million Rotarians who spent money, over $1.5 billion in Nigeria alone. Close to $250 million was spent, and over 1 billion children were immunized against the wild polio virus. And so we need to give a shout out to all the family of Rotary and all the donor partners, some of who lost their lives during the process in the field. So it's an opportunity to appreciate them. Now, having said that much, the next fight is actually hepatitis. And the United Nations came up with a charter in 2000, sorry, WHO came up with a charter in 2016. They wanted to eradicate hepatitis globally by the year 2020. That was in 5 years' time, 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So they drew a strategic plan for countries to follow. The major thrust of that strategic plan was that every government should have an hepatitis unit under the Federal Ministry of Health. That hepatitis unit should make hepatitis vaccines mandatory for all children being born. That hepatitis unit should also ensure that pregnant women and anybody that comes to the hospital to present any ailment should also be tested for hepatitis. And I'll quickly tell you why before I continue. You see, unlike so many other problems, so many other diseases that are very obvious when you have them, with hepatitis, it's not very obvious. The clinical symptoms of hepatitis are very mild and very insignificant. For instance, it shows in the color of urine and color of stool. The urine becomes pale. At times it becomes darkened. The stool becomes more carton colored, for instance. But how many of us actually poo and then stop to look at the poo? And when you poo and it's carton colored, what do? That's one example. Other ailments or other conditions that it presents with are like stomach ache that we have every day. Other conditions are like nausea, which is the feeling of vomiting. I mean, it happens to anybody. Another condition is the actual vomiting itself. I mean, you vomit every day on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like headache, body pains. So those are the signs of hepatitis. So, and these are very insignificant signs. So when you have this, you probably don't even see it as anything serious. For instance, when you have loss of appetite, you probably go to the doctor and say, "Doctor, I think I have malaria." And then they treat you for malaria because they've given you some medication, maybe with some analgesic, the pain goes away. But after 2 or 3 weeks, it comes back again. Then you go back and say, "Doctor, that malaria hasn't gone." And then they treat you again. But nobody tests you for hepatitis. So what it did is because of the very dangerous nature of the non-clinical manifestation of the signs of hepatitis, the WHO then mandated that for anybody presenting at the hospital, test them for hepatitis. Because people can actually be carriers, and they will be carriers for 30 years. It will not even show at all. So they will be sharing the virus to everybody they interact with, and it will not show in their own body.
I see.
Yes.
And there is A, B, C, doctor, correct?
Yes, there's A, B, C, D, and E. Actually, there are various variants, even up to Z, but the most popular ones are the A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay.
The A and the E are actually self-limiting, meaning they will come, they will probably cause some debilitation, some illness, but it's not serious, it's not severe, it doesn't kill. Well, it rarely kills. So you get over it by yourself, even if you don't take medication. That's for the A and the E. And usually people contract this through dirty toilet habits, poor sanitation, poor hygiene, and the rest. Maybe not washing food very well before eating, like fruits, for instance, or eating raw food, or not properly cooked food or so, yes. Or sharing utensils and co, yes. But then it comes and then it goes. That's for the A and the E. And then luckily, there are vaccines for both of them. There's vaccines for A, there's vaccines for E. Even though the vaccines for E has not been WHO certified, but the vaccines for A is available and has been WHO certified. But why would you take a vaccination for something, an ailment that will come and can go by itself, that does not kill? So that's why the vaccine is not very popular. Now that leaves the B, the C, and the D. Now the B, it is the B and the C. I'll come to the D later. The B and the C is usually contracted by exchange of body fluids, like sweat, like blood, like seminal fluids, like even during sexual intercourse, or when people like share sharp objects, like maybe drug injection users and share needles, or like in some remote villages in Africa where they give tribal marks with the same sharp objects. They use the same sharp object for like 10, 20 children, give them tribal marks, or even when they do local circumcision with the same knife. So those are areas where they can actually contract hepatitis B and C. Now, the major difference between C and B is that B has a vaccine.
Yeah.
But it does not have a cure. But it has a treatment. The reason is because it is a DNA virus, just like HIV/AIDS. So it has a treatment. It can be managed for life. But there is no cure to say, okay, this is full cure, except the body itself auto-resolves. And 75% of cases between the ages of 18 and 40 actually auto-resolve. The body is a very powerful mechanism. The body, in 3 out of 4 cases of those with their immunity active, actually auto-resolve hepatitis B. But even though it does not have a cure, it has a vaccine. And the vaccine is taken just 3 times. Once you test and the person is negative, you give the vaccination. 1 ml for adults, 0.5 ml for children. 1 month later, they come back for the second dose. And then 1 month to 5 months after the second dose, they come back for the third dose. And they're protected for 30 years to life, depending on the make of the vaccine. That's the beauty of hepatitis B. Now, ironically, hepatitis C does not have a vaccine. But not only does it have a treatment, it has a full cure. So within 43 to 90 days, there are tablets that the person will take on a daily basis, and the person will be totally cured of hepatitis C. That's the beauty of hepatitis B and C. Now, finally, hepatitis D is actually a variant of hepatitis B. It is a stronger version of hepatitis B. They realize that there are some people with hepatitis B that are resistant to regular treatments, and the way they behave is different. So they now call that class hepatitis D. So there's nobody that actually has hepatitis D. It is actually a severe form or a super infection of hepatitis B. So besides all the variants, the major parts are A, B, C, D, and E, like you noted, Dr. Eisa.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. You are a walking encyclopedia, doctor. You are.
Thank you so much.
Before we're gonna take a break here very shortly, but before we take a break, I want to ask you a question about everybody's talking about Bill Gates and what he invested in vaccination, especially for the kids in Africa. Do you believe what Bill Gates is doing is good for Africa and the world? And what do you say about all the debate that is going on now on social media saying that he's actually killing the African children rather than helping them? What's your view on this?
Well, I beg to slightly disagree. If Bill Gates is actually killing the children of Africa, then we're not privy to that yet. That's the reality. But for the vaccines and its support, we can see the supports visibly. For instance, for every $1 we're able to raise in Rotary, Bill Gates gives Rotary $2 towards polio eradication. I mean, how is that killing the children of Africa? So I'll leave the audience to actually answer that question. Now, the reason there's a lot of conspiracy theory is because it appears that when Bill Gates is doing his philanthropy, there appears to be some form of business. For instance, Bill Gates has been pushing for vaccination for COVID. Yeah. And the research has shown that he also has interest in some pharma companies that are pushing to actually get their vaccines certified. Now you're beginning to see where the conflict comes in. So it appears like, okay, this is being done because of a business initiative. But however, I think it's really for the general good of the world, if you ask me. because it's glaring. And I'll leave it for the audience to decide. If somebody gives you $2 for every $1 towards polio vaccination, I think that person deserves some accolades. For instance, he never had anything to do with any polio vaccine, for instance. When we had problems in the north, it was just pure conspiracy theory and propaganda when people were saying the vaccines was meant to actually stunt the growth of the children, or it was meant to actually reduce the population of the north. I mean, it's all conspiracy theory. And Bill Gates had nothing to do with that. It's just because some time ago, Pfizer had to test some vaccines in the north without approval from the federal government of Nigeria. And then it went haywire. So it's resulted in some unwanted consequences.
Yeah.
So because of that.
I'm sorry, doctor. I guess the question is that people are asking why Bill Gates and the West are starting by testing those vaccination on the African kids. Why Bill Gates' kids himself are not being vaccinated, as we understand. So this is the question on the table. So what if you want to test the vaccination? Why don't you test it in America, in Europe, in Africa? Why only in Africa?
No, the truth of the matter is WHO has come out to actually debunk that they did not say they're testing only in Africa. And incidentally, the world rep of WHO currently is an African, is from Ethiopia. And he has said, no way, there's nobody that is going to test vaccines in only Africa. They're going to test vaccines generally. If they test vaccines, for instance, in Europe alone, it may not have the same effects as in Africa. So when you're testing, you should do a broad-based testing. For instance, the candidate drug that I was talking about, the super infection therapy, we did the first stage of the clinical trials in Germany and Hungary. Now we're coming to Nigeria and Ghana to do the second phase of the testing. Now, if they're not aware of our previous testing, they'll probably say, why are you bringing it to Africa? But we need to let people know this is what we're doing, this is what we've done. So the WHO rep has come out to say, no, they're not testing any vaccines in Africa alone. They will test it everywhere, not just in Africa. Like when Madagascar developed the syrup for COVID, they were using it first. And besides using it, anybody that is going to use it, even when Nigeria took part of it, it still went through our regulatory agencies to ascertain the content of the syrup before they allowed people to begin to use. So it's only normal for us as Africans to ask more questions, get details, get the facts before we throw the baby away with the bathwater. So I think we should work on getting the facts before we just give a dog a bad name because we want to crucify the dog.
That's a very, very fair answer and very very just. And I really appreciate your openness and touching on some sensitive issue that is going around in social media. Right now, I think that, we will go into a short break and then we will move into the second part of the interview. It's amazing talking to you, Dr. Omotosho. Learning so much, and I am sure all the audience are enjoying this. Now I would like to ask you about your plan for Africa, your plan for Nigeria. Please share with us, what are you planning to do next? And what are some of the program investment achievement that you are trying to accomplish? Dr. Omotosho?
Thank you, Dr. Eisa. Well, first for Nigeria, I believe there's a lot of noise about Nigeria and indeed several African countries about fighting corruption. And I often tell people that you don't fight corruption. No, you don't. Corruption is usually a byproduct of the system. So you can't fight the byproduct. What you need to do is to focus on the system. When you build the system, the corruption itself will die a natural death. That's the reality. You see, and this strategy has been used even in the pharmaceutical sector. For instance, a few years back in Nigeria, we had a lot of unwholesome drugs within the pipeline. So we had a lot of fake drugs and a lot of drugs that were substandard within the country. Now, instead of fighting the people bringing in those drugs and the sources and all of those, or going from shop to shop to read them, that's going to be a whole lot of wasteful exercise. What we had to do was to sanitize the channel, the pipeline where the drugs was coming through. We ensured that there was a regulatory agency, and so any drug you're bringing into the country, any drug that you're manufacturing within the country will have to get an approval from the regulatory agency. And then from there, it goes into channels, and you know exactly what batch of drugs goes into which pharmacy, goes into which hospitals, goes into which establishments. So you can follow the pipeline like that, and then who comes to take it from the clinic and consumes it. So by the time you're able to follow the channel and the pipeline is maintained, then you find out there is no loophole for the unwholesome drugs to sneak in again. Of course, a few of them will still sneak in. The same way, I think, the same strategy, I believe, should be used in eradicating corruption. What we need to do is come up with strong systems that will ensure that the average person has something to live for. The average person is able to work and has dignity of labor. The average person has enough self-confidence be able to be self-reliant. The average person should be able to have rest of mind that if I work for 35 years or I work till the age of 60, I should have a home to retire to. While I'm doing that, I may not necessarily need a car, but in the absence of a car, there is an effective transportation system for me that will take me from point A to point B. I'm not afraid that, okay, the only car that I have has broken down. How do I take my kids to school? How does my wife go to the markets? How do I get to work? Because the systems are all not working. The moment we have the systems that are working effectively and are in place, corruption will die a natural death. Of course, you will still find a few corrupt people, but then we will not be described as a nation of corrupt people or as a continent of corrupt people anymore. And I often tell people, the multinationals have a role to play, but the real powerhouse, the real engine that drives any economy are the small and medium scale enterprises, the entrepreneurs. Those are the bulk of the people in the middle because they take care of the top and they also take care of the bottom. And incidentally, in almost any society, you have as much as 80% of those people right there. In Africa, unfortunately, you have more people at the bottom, very few people at the top, and a lot more people in the middle. So what we need to do is widen that gap in the middle. Everybody cannot be super rich, but you can, as much as possible, try to bring in more people from the bottom into the middle side, so that people that will ordinarily survive on less than $2 a day, as we speak, it's estimated about 65% of Nigerians survive on less than $2 a day. That is totally unacceptable. How do you bring in business? How do you increase the ease of doing business? How do you make business platforms more affordable, more available? How do you make bank loans into single digits with zero or no collateral? What are the other strategies that you can put in place to ensure that you can give out money and you can get the money back, so that you can bring more of those people into the middle crater, because those are the people that can develop the economy. And when they do that, then you find that less people are corrupt, less people become armed robbers, less people become ask for bribe, less people will become prostitutes. Now, I'm not saying you still will not have corrupt people in the society, but then it will not be circumstantial anymore. Then it will now be a self-indictment by those few people, because they will not have an opportunity or an excuse to say this is the reason why I'm doing this. Now, I'm not in any case making a case for corrupt practices. No, 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 no. I'm just saying when the system is in place, when you're able to empower a lot of people and you allow a lot of people flourish, then corruption will die a natural death. And that is what we're trying to do in Nigeria. That is what we're doing in the Entrepreneurs Organization, where I am the current president. We're trying to see what we can do to educate a lot of people to be self-reliant, to be disciplined, to understand that they can actually do this by themselves. And then where possible, empower them. And it will shock you that it takes very little to actually empower people to start a business. At times for somebody else, it's just the confidence that go ahead. If you need help, I'm here. And they will never need help. They may never need help. Yeah. So at times it's just a bank guarantee to say, yes, if it defaults on the loan, I will pay. I don't have to put down my money. It's just the confidence to say, if it defaults, I will pay. And then he's able to take his $1 million loan or $2,000 loan and is able to turn it around. And then it becomes a breadwinner for his entire family, an extended family. So if we truly search ourselves, each one of us has an opportunity to look within and find that thing that we can truly use to be a gift to somebody else. It's not about money alone. It's not about money. At times it's just a shoulder to cry on. At times it's just an handkerchief to say, okay, you're crying, this is an handkerchief. At times it's just a confidence to say, please go ahead, I'm with you in this. So we often tell ourselves that in Rotary, there is always something you can use to be of use to somebody else. You can always be a gift to somebody else. If you search within yourself, you will find that gift that you can use to make the life of somebody else better. On the African continent, okay.
Go ahead.
On the African continent, the problem is similar to Nigeria, but what we're trying to do for the African continent is to encourage Africans to adopt the concept of believing in ourselves. The average African thinks he or she is a second-class citizen because of the way we have been brainwashed to believe that we have inferior intellect. So we need to first believe in ourselves. A sage once said, if you believe you can do it or you believe you cannot do it, either way you're right. So we need to start with that self-conviction that yes, we're truly capable. Over 30% of the world's natural resources are in Africa. The best diamonds are from Africa. The best gold are from Africa. In fact, the best second, third, fourth grade crude oil are from Africa. Yeah. So we have all of this. And when you even see the intellectual capacity of Africans, look at them. Recently we had about 93 people graduate, I think, from a school in the US. I can't remember the university now, from a medical school. And 86 of them were Nigerians.
Yeah.
So, and it happens. The same thing, you have a lot of Africans excelling left, right, and center. Unfortunately, yeah. What we hear about is just the bad news. What we hear about is the internet fraudsters, the 419ers, and all of those. But I mean, all of those excelling in their various fields, in their various vocations, we seldom hear about them. We've got to beat our drums ourselves because nobody's going to beat it for us. So, and it starts from believing in ourselves. The moment we believe in ourselves, the little that we do, we'll be able to put it on the table. Gone are the days when Africans do beautiful things and then keep quiet about it. We need to make noise ourselves. Like we always say in Africa, shake what your mama gave you. Whatever it is you have, there's nothing wrong in being proud of it. There's nothing wrong in showcasing it. Gone are the days when we light a candle and put it under the table. You light a candle, you put it on the table. And that's what we've been doing in Africa. So we need to begin to believe in ourselves that for every opportunity we have to light a candle, let's put a candle on the table for the entire world to see. So once we believe in ourselves, we have more than enough resources to make Africa great. And one of the steps, the right steps, is actually the AfTA. That's the Free Trade Zone Agreement within Africa now. That is being signed by all the 54 member nations. That simply means goods that are 80% manufactured in Africa, that has 80% local content, can actually move within Africa tariff-free, duty-free. I think that's awesome. So if countries prepare well enough, they will be able to harness the opportunities in there. And indeed, that is one of the things that we're riding on for hepatitis. So what we're simply saying is this: we want to have a vaccine farm in Nigeria. However, there is already a vaccine farm in South Africa. There is a vaccine farm in Morocco. Egypt is planning to also have a vaccine farm, even though they already have an hepatitis drug for hepatitis C drug, which comes at less than $200. That was actually a game changer, because before then, hepatitis drug was about $90,000 for the full treatment course. And they broke it down. The pharmaceutical company is FACO. They broke it down to $200. So that totally changed. That change, it was a total game changer. So that's what we're saying. So what are there's no need competing against each other. It's a new economy where we'll need to collaborate. And a few of my friends have used the word collabonomics. How do you come up with economics of collaboration? So what can you actually make in South Africa that you can export to other parts of Africa? What can we make in Nigeria competitively that we can export to other parts of Africa? I don't have to make the same things that South Africa is making and then we both start competing against each other in Africa. No. Let's sit together and say, okay, we're ready to make vaccines. Do you have the capacity to make hepatitis B vaccines? Which one can you make? Okay, what vaccines can you make in Morocco? What vaccines are you planning to make in Ethiopia? Now, Nigeria that is planning, what vaccines can you make? You don't have to compete. We can collaborate so that we can be better. And that's a strategy we're trying to use. Luckily, I'm on the hepatitis board for the African Union. I'm on the board. And the key thing that we're doing really is to enforce the WHO strategy plan that was formulated in 2016. That strategy is what was subsumed into the United Nations target 3.3 of the SDG target 3.3 that seeks to eradicate all communicable diseases with particular emphasis on hepatitis by the year 2030. So they came out with a list of strategies, what they want people to do and how they want to see it. So what was just adopted was that WHO strategy, and that's the same thing. There's no need reinventing the formula, because WHO realized that only six countries were on track to meeting the target by the year 2020. So there was just no way that could stand. So as the United Nations adopted it and then put it under the SDG, and it was specifically on that target 3.3 of the SDG targets. So what we're doing is ensuring that countries are able to come up with hepatitis units. Those hepatitis units do the routine vaccination. Then there's also routine testing, and then we're able to collaborate for competitive advantage, not for competition against each other. And if we're able to do that, I think as Africans, we're on the verge to eradicating hepatitis by the year 2030. Luckily, hepatitis 0 is present in 34 African countries. We're actually present in 96 countries globally, because it's actually a Rotary Action Group, really. But our stage name, our project name is hepatitis 0, because we want zero hepatitis. So we're present in 34 African countries, and we hope to expand to the remaining 21 African countries before the end of this year, if not for COVID, so that we can come together and as a force, as a coalition, actually begin to push to zero hepatitis. And I believe it is achievable.
God bless you, Dr. Omotosho. It's incredible what you said. And I love what you said about having the confidence in yourself. I continue to repeat this on many occasions. It's not all about money and the investment, but it's about creating opportunity. I totally agree with you. And really, I mean, I have two more questions.
Okay.
You know, one question specifically about the pharmaceutical. Correct me if I'm wrong. The medicine, the vaccination, the pharmaceutical business is basically coming from a rich earth, like the African earth, as we know. If you agree with me that Africa has the richest earth in the world, why couldn't we build Africa to be the pharmaceutical king of the world? You know, if it's all coming from herbs and trees, and is this something you can envision for Africa in the future?
Yes, it's actually possible, but you see the problem that we have in Africa is the problem of intellect, and that intellect is perception. You see, we've been made to believe that we're second grade. I'll tell you a very sad story. In Nigeria, the moment COVID started, we had about 2 or 3 professors of pharmacology and one of pharmacy who came up with some herbs with a claim that it works against COVID.
Okay.
You know, nobody took them serious. Nobody took them serious. Even Madagascar, the syrup they came up with, they had to fight.
Yes, I heard about it.
The president had to drink it on national TV before people began to take them serious, before WHO began to take them serious. We need to get to a position in Africa where in global stage, where we can come to the table as equal partners, not as second-class citizens. That's where the problem is. The moment we can do that, so many things will change. I know you've specifically asked about pharmaceuticals and pharmacy, but it applies to every other area. Where does cocoa for chocolates come from? Africa. It comes from Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and some other African countries. It's turned into chocolates, and then it comes back here, and we buy it 100 times the price they bought the cocoa from us, the cocoa beans. Where does the best coffee, besides from the Arab world, the best coffees are in Africa.
Yeah.
But we're not even a nation, we're not a continent of coffee drinking people. Instead, we import the refined coffee that is extremely expensive, more than 100 times the price.
Yeah.
Even crude oil, besides the Arab world, all the crude oil that comes from here. Look at my country, Nigeria, for instance. We export crude oil and then bring in refined petroleum products. It's appalling, despite the fact that we have 2 functioning refineries.
Yes.
That's where the problem is. So we need to begin to believe in ourselves.
Yes.
But beyond that, to answer your question specifically, the problems with pharmaceuticals is that it takes a long gestation period from discovering the drug to actually allowing somebody else to take the drug. And that's where the problem is. So we need people who are resilient, people who have deep pockets, people who are persevering, to know that, okay, this drug may take us 10 years to get into the market from extracting it from the bark of a tree to actually compressing it into a capsule. Because you need to do series of tests, you need to check so many other things, you need to accelerate what it can cost in 20, 30 years time and see how safe it is for human consumption. So all of those pharmaceutical research, most of the time we don't have such facility locally. We don't have the patience to actually wait for it yet because we have a myriad of problems. You store maybe a candidate drug in a refrigerator and then electricity strikes and then it's destroyed. You know, so those are all the problems that I think we need to put in place. So beyond all of those, first is to ensure that we have functional systems. Once we have functional systems, that will serve as a platform for all the other industries to build on. That's the reality. But for us to have the platforms, nobody's going to do that for us. The Chinese are not going to build the platforms for Africa. Europe is not going to build a platform for Africa. The West is also not going to build a platform for Africa. We have to build a platform for ourselves. When we build a platform, they will respect us, and then we can come to the table. Because in life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And that's why I often tell people, life is not a buffet. You don't just go to the table and take whatever is available. No, life is a la carte. You've got to sit and painstakingly decide what you want, put it together, mix it so that you can enjoy it.
Excellent, excellent. I totally agree with you. And talking about China, what's your view? Do you think that we as African have sold our soul to the Chinese? And how should we restructure this relationship with China, especially after COVID and all this? Do you think Do you think that we should rethink our strategy with China?
I think it's extremely important to rethink our strategy with China. I have nothing against China, and I say this because they're just being business capitalists. You have an opportunity, you want to take undue advantage, which is normal. That's what capitalists do. Even though they have a socialist background, but it's ironic how their business perspective is actually more of the capital is more capitalist inclined. You see, because when they come, they don't force the African nations to take all of this. They put in those clauses inside the agreement that if you're unable to pay, we will take over the running of this, and you sign. So you must look at those clauses and say, no, 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 I'm not selling my soul. If I'm not able to pay, what are the other options? If the options are not acceptable, then you leave them. In project management, for instance, you have a way of categorizing your risk before it happens. We call it risk management. So you don't actually wait till the risk happens. You actually assume the risk will happen, and you begin to come up with ways to mitigate against it. So you say, is this tolerable? Is this acceptable? Is this intolerable? So if you grade it like that, you will not know we cannot accept this. There is no way we can accept that you will take over 80% of our airports because we're not able to pay. There has to be a better way. So if, you know, in negotiations, there's usually one aspect of negotiation that people forget. There's what they call BAWA, B-A-W-A. That simply means best alternative without agreement. So for every negotiation you're going into, you don't have to agree. No, I'm coming with my terms, you're coming with your terms. So we meet at the table. So most times we always look at, okay, you have your terms, I have my terms. How do we meet? Where is the compromise position? But there's a third option that we often forget. It's the best alternative without agreement. You don't have to agree. So what is that alternative without agreeing? I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me. But what alternative do we have? So there has to be an alternative. You may walk away from the deal. That is an alternative. You can say, okay, we will rather build this. If it's going to take us 20 years, instead of the 5 years you want to build it for us, we will rather build it. Or why don't we go to the African Development Bank? Maybe the rates are cheaper. Maybe the interest rates are cheaper. Yes, we may have to do some more stringent conditioning or so, but there's always an alternative. So I have nothing against the Chinese. I think it's the African nations that have got to look at the contracts very well and then decide what they agree and what they disagree.
I totally agree with you, and I thank you for your honest and direct answer. Finally, Dr. Omotosho, I'm really very delighted to have spent this time with you. And last but not least, I think we want to bring you back and talk more because the subject is so rich and there are so many questions from myself and the audience. Last but not least, I just want a message from you, from your heart, from your African heart, to all our young brother and sister that are starting their life, and maybe they have a dream to become like Dr. Mike Omotosho. You know, no, I'm serious. You know, what is the message, you know, specifically for our African brother and sister? I know we talked a lot about confidence and creating opportunity, but what are some of the things that you really like to see change in the mentality and the thinking and the way of doing things, especially for the young African talent?
Okay. All right. So basically, I think I'll just leave with three things. The first is for all of us to recognize that goodness is extremely important. And I often tell people that being kind is not just about doing the right things, but going the extra mile to make sure that things are right. You see, because when I do the right things, it's left to me alone. But by the time I go the extra mile to ensure that things are done the right way, then I'm not only doing the right thing, I'm also influencing others within my area of influence to also do the right thing. And you know, like Mother Teresa will say, I sweep my doorstep, you sweep your doorstep, she sweeps her doorsteps, he sweeps his doorstep, and then the community will be clean. Because there's no silver bullet that will make the entire community clean. So that takes me to the second part, which is Ubuntu. We all exist for each other. We need to recognize that I am my brother's keeper. There's no man or woman that is an island. Whatever happens, even in Tokyo, Japan, will affect somebody somewhere on the African continent. We are all our brother's keeper. So it's not an African thing alone, but when you begin to see the next person as your brother, then you will not take what does not belong to you. You will not take what belongs to somebody else because he is your brother. So when you begin to have that perception, then so many things will change. Then the final thing I want to say too is that learning for me is the day you realize, is coming to the realization that you know very little so that you can begin to learn more. Because the moment you believe you know it all, then you're dead. You only stop learning when you're dead. But once you can say, yes, I know very little, so I want to learn more, then learning is in progress. And I think that's the place we should all be. So first, we should take care of ourselves, we should believe in ourselves, and then we should strive to learn, believing that we know very little.
Dr. Mike Omotosho, it's an honor to interview you today, and thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Eisa. Thanks. Do have a great day.
You too, sir.